In 1983, a single speck of white paint, barely 0.2 millimeters wide, struck the reinforced window of the Space Shuttle Challenger. It did not bounce off. It carved a crater into the glass, causing $50,000 in immediate damage, and that was just a fleck of peeling paint. Today, look up at the night sky. Hidden in that darkness are an estimated 140 million untracked, jagged fragments of dead satellites and shattered rockets. They are invisible to radar, flying blindly around our planet at 28,000 kilometers per hour. At that terrifying velocity, a discarded screw doesn't just puncture metal, it detonates with the kinetic energy of a hand grenade. We were promised a utopia. The mega-constellations currently being launched into orbit were supposed to connect the globe, cure the digital divide, and elevate humanity. Instead, they are weaving a lethal, impenetrable shell of metallic shrapnel directly above our heads. We are quietly building a prison of our own design, and if the doors lock, we will be trapped on this planet forever. But the sky wasn't supposed to be a cage, not when we first unlocked the door to the cosmos. On October 4th, 1957, millions of people across the globe stopped what they were doing, stepped out onto their front porches, and simply looked up. They watched a faint, blinking silver light tumble through the twilight. It was Sputnik. It wasn't a threat, it was a miracle. It was the moment we realized our species was no longer bound to the dirt. In those early golden days of the space race, there was a profound, almost naive belief that the cosmos belonged to everyone. It was a blank canvas for human potential, untouched by the greed that had scarred the Earth below. On January 27, 1967, that fragile hope was put into writing. World leaders gathered to sign the Outer Space Treaty. It was championed by visionaries like Arvid Pardo, an ambassador from Malta who fought desperately to declare the cosmos the common heritage of mankind. The intent was pure and beautifully simple. Pardo wanted to ensure that developing nations, countries that couldn't afford billion-dollar rockets, would never be locked out of the stars. He wanted to prevent a ruthless, capitalist race to conquer the void. For a brief window in history, the universe was not a corporate asset. It was a sanctuary. We agreed that no nation, and certainly no corporation, could claim ownership of the infinite. But even as those treaties were signed, a slow, invisible poison was already accumulating in the dark. Every launched rocket left behind a discarded booster. Every dead satellite was simply abandoned in orbit, left to drift like ghost ships in a silent sea. By 1978, the romance of space was colliding with cold, hard physics. Two NASA scientists, Donald J. Kessler and Burton G. Cour-Palais, published a chilling, seminal paper. They looked past the heroism of the astronauts and did the brutal math on the garbage. They left behind. They predicted that the sheer volume of dead metal accumulating above us would eventually reach a critical mass. Around the same time, John Gabbard, a researcher at NORAD, realized that official government data was vastly underreporting the actual amount of junk orbiting our planet. In a quiet interview, Gabbard gave this creeping mathematical nightmare a name. He called it the Kessler syndrome. It was no longer a theoretical physics problem. It was a terminal diagnosis for our future in space. They warned us that our greatest triumph was slowly mutating into a self-assembling minefield. The math was flawless. The warning was absolute. And for the next 40 years, we completely ignored it. We didn't just ignore the math. We completely commodified the warning. We took that crushed metal and launched it right back up. Today, low Earth orbit is no longer a canvas for human exploration. It is a wildly unregulated, trillion-dollar corporate real estate market. Astrophysicists call this impending disaster collisional cascading, but you can think of it as an orbital house of cards. Imagine a domino effect operating at 28,000 kilometers per hour. One dead satellite collides with another piece of debris. The impact is catastrophic. That single crash spawns thousands of new fragments. Those fragments act as cosmic buckshot, smashing into other systems and turning the orbit into a self-sustaining maelstrom of sand. The ledger of our modern crime is staggering. Right now, there are 14,700 tons of non-functional metal choking low Earth orbits. That staggering weight includes over 140 million microscopic, untracked fragments. Each one is a lethal projectile. According to recent risk models, there is a 29% probability of a major, cascading collision in our highest-risk orbital bands by the year 2032. The system is already buckling under the pressure. In just a 6-month window in 2024, commercial megaconstellations were forced to execute tens of thousands of emergency collision avoidance maneuvers. Our safety margin is collapsing. In 2018, the crash clock, our estimated buffer before a widespread disruptive event triggers a catastrophic collision, stood at 164 days. Today, that recovery window has violently shrunk to just 2.8 days. We are operating on a razor's edge, entirely blind to the cliff. I know what you are thinking. Dealing with these invisible, systemic threats is exhausting. You have rent to pay, groceries to buy, and a life to manage. You might believe this orbital garbage dump doesn't affect your daily life, that it is just an abstract problem for billionaires. You are terribly wrong. If a Kessler event takes out our satellite infrastructure, the global economy crashes overnight. We are looking at a projected cost of up to $42.3 billion. Without GPS, global supply chains instantly freeze, shipping networks halt, and your 401k retirement fund evaporates before you even have the chance to log in. And the physical danger is already here. These mega-constellations are designed to burn up when they die, theoretically keeping the orbit clean. But that incineration dumps massive quantities of aluminum oxide and black carbon directly into our stratosphere. They are systematically destroying the ozone layer, trading space debris for severe climate pollution. Sometimes they don't burn up at all. In 2024, a scorched piece of the International Space Station literally crashed through the roof of a family home in Florida. The grand illusion is over. Our sky has been privatized, polluted, and weaponized against us, and the true existential cost hasn't even begun to hit. The grand illusion of an infinite frontier is dead, and the true existential cost begins long before the first piece of debris physically strikes a major city. Before the sky physically collapses, it will die on paper. We are rapidly approaching a devastating threshold known as the economic Kessler syndrome. Long before the orbit becomes a literal meat grinder, it simply becomes a financial black hole. As the sheer density of garbage increases, the cost of doing business in space becomes uninsurable. Operators are already being forced to add heavy, expensive physical shielding to their satellites. They are burning precious fuel to execute constant, frantic collision avoidance maneuvers. Every time a satellite dodges a piece of shrapnel, it burns away days of its operational lifespan. It is a slow, agonizing death by 1,000 cuts. Insurance premiums for low Earth orbit operations are skyrocketing, shifting from a calculated risk to an absolute gamble. Eventually, the financial math inverts entirely. It becomes mathematically impossible to launch a new satellite and turn a profit. When that happens, the launch rate drops to absolute zero. Our greatest technological frontier will be transformed from an engine of human progress into a toxic, abandoned industrial wasteland. But the horrific irony of this situation goes much deeper. Let's examine the ultimate Socratic paradox of our modern environmental crusade. Right now, we are launching thousands of highly advanced satellites to monitor global warming. We rely on these orbital sentinels to save our dying Earth. However, the massive rockets required to put them there burn immense amounts of fuel. They inject thousands of tons of climate-altering black carbon directly into the upper atmosphere. And here is the terrifying realization. To clean up the orbit, operators deliberately design their satellites to eventually fall back to Earth and burn up. But they do not magically disappear. They vaporize. They dump massive quantities of aluminum oxide and highly toxic metals into the fragile stratosphere. These artificial clouds of metallic ash act as perfect catalysts for ozone destruction. The exact technology we built to monitor our climate is actively destroying our atmosphere. Furthermore, as greenhouse gases warm the surface of the Earth, they paradoxically cause the upper atmosphere to cool and shrink. This means the thermosphere is losing density. With less atmospheric drag, dead satellites are no longer being pulled down. They are staying up there longer, trapped in a perfectly engineered feedback loop of our own making. This realization forces us to look beyond our own planet. It brings us to a chilling, philosophical horizon regarding the Fermi paradox. For decades, scientists have stared into the deafening silence of the cosmos, asking a painfully simple question. If the universe is so unfathomably vast and so ancient, where are all the other advanced civilizations? Perhaps the great filter isn't a dramatic nuclear war or a rogue artificial intelligence. Perhaps the answer is a slow, boring, corporate inevitability. Every intelligent civilization eventually reaches for the stars, but in their unyielding greed, they privatize their own orbit. They launch endless mega-constellations for short-term profit, polluting their immediate sky so thoroughly that they lock themselves inside a self-made, impassable cage. They trap themselves on their dying home worlds, looking up at a sky blocked by their own forgotten garbage. And they quietly extinguish themselves in the dark, forever cut off from the infinite. We are not just polluting a market. We are sealing the tomb on our entire species. But the tomb is not fully sealed yet. There is a fracture in the dark, and a violent awakening is finally taking hold. Regulatory bodies are suddenly realizing the terrifying scale of the threat. Recently, the U.S. Federal Communications Commission made a monumental pivot. They ruthlessly slashed the allowable post-mission disposal timeline for satellites from 25 years down to a strict 5 years. The era of free dumping in the cosmos is ending, and they are finally enforcing it. The FCC issued its first-ever space debris penalty, fining Dish Network $150,000 for improperly abandoning a dead satellite. Technology is also pivoting from pollution to extraction. We are witnessing the birth of active debris removal systems, robotic arms, magnetic nets, and laser ablation, actively hunting down rogue shrapnel. But the true weapon is financial. Global experts are aggressively pushing for space debris reclamation bonds. This is a strict polluter pays model. It forces megacorporations to financially guarantee the cleanup cost of their satellites before they are even legally permitted to launch. If they go bankrupt or abandon their trash, the bond automatically pays for a robotic janitor to drag it out of the sky. I know we are all suffering from a creeping, space-based shifting baseline syndrome. It hurts to realize that the pristine, untouched night sky we grew up with is gone. The children of tomorrow may never experience the pure, empty canvas of the stars the way humanity did for thousands of years. They will inherit a sky crisscrossed with the scars of our rapid expansion. But we can stop the lock from turning. We can force these corporate titans to clean up their mess, reclaim our orbit, and ensure that when humanity is finally ready to reach into the infinite, the door will still be open.